It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, November 24th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high-quality content that loves 3 goals in 26 seconds, Russ.
It's hard to duplicate.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and welcome to Locked On Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here as always with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. You can win $300 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter. And before we dive into that crazy game against the New Jersey Devils, which was a tremendous amount of fun to watch, that is for sure, we are going to get to our preview of the game against the Lightning tonight, as well as our Nemesis of the week. There was a little nugget of news over the weekend that happened that could be Flyers adjacent here, with the news that the Winnipeg Jets and Brad Lambert are kind of a mess right now in that relationship. Brad Lambert got sent down to the minors and he has requested a trade. So first off, what do you think is happening with Brad Lambert, and is there something to this?
He just wants to play. He's always been that way. Like, if he doesn't kind of, get playing time, he's, not great to have around, which I understand, because a couple of years ago, he had a terrific year in the AHL. He probably felt like this year he was going to get, well, even last year, he was going to get more call time. He didn't, because they were a really good team. And now this year it's the same thing. So he's just kind of fed up with that. And he's a very talented player. He's not going to come cheap. This isn't a situation where the Flyers can say, well, we'll give you 2 seconds and you get no. Winnipeg's going to want something good because he's a 20-something-year-old center and with a little size. So, this is a situation where if the Flyers were looking at this, the thing that Winnipeg always looks for are players with term. They want players with term. Now, we just had Jackie Spiegel on Off the Post. She said they might be looking for a defenseman. Well, okay, but a defenseman with term, it's going to be a better defenseman than you want to get up. They're not going to take Zamula for Brad Lambert. It's not going to happen. Right. So that may be something they look at, and I would look at it simply because he has the trajectory of a second line center. He has good size. He will get inside on guys. There are some that still think they like him better on the wing. I think he's a natural center. I think he actually can play the position more than a guy like Trevor Zegras. I think he's more set up to do it. So, yeah, I would explore it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know if he's the right fit for this Flyers team, given, where he's at right now and some of the attitude issues that seem to be out there. But, I mean, certainly the skill is there. And it could be worth a shot. I just don't know that it's going to get them anywhere in terms of the top level center that they're looking for.
No, but
ultimately here.
Sure, but I think what it could get them is, for one thing, Dvorak at some point has to play down in the lineup. He's not going to be able to play up in the lineup all season. That's pretty much been proven his whole NHL career. So the thing is, you still have to find somebody for Matvei Michkov. Now, it was nice that Sean Couturier gave him a nice goal, but those plays are few and far between Couturier and Michkov. A guy like Lambert who's really creative, faster. That's somebody who could click with him. You still have to find that guy to click with him at center, and that's where I would be looking at.
Yeah, I think it's just a deal that I would be very careful on and really consider what you're giving up and the risk factors. That's all. But talking about the game against the New Jersey Devils here, obviously we love the first period quite a bit, but I do want to get into the changes that have been made by Rick Tocchet here, because we talked about the top 6 switch up that
Mhm.
happened in the previous game to a certain degree of success that continued into this game with even more success, and
Mhm.
you gotta think that that's gonna stick around for a while now, right?
Do you? Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I honestly
I mean,
don't
come
know.
on, they're gonna keep it for a while.
I mean, they'll keep it to start next game. I don't know. I mean, again, it's interesting because some guys, like his pairs, are doing well. Like Travis Konechny's not doing well. This guy's missing open nets. He's fighting himself out there. He may have had an assist, but he's fighting himself out there. So I don't know. Does he belong on that line? I don't know. Like, that's part of it. At some point, he may play himself out of that line until he figures it out. Like, you don't sit him, but when he goes through stretches like this, he's killing some scoring opportunities. And so you do wonder how that's going to play into it. That's why I don't know.
I mean, that part of it is fair, I guess. I just see the success across the board with the other guys, and if only one of, like, the 9 isn't clicking in some way right now, I think those are good odds. I do appreciate that all 3 quote unquote OG, Kate's line guys got on the board, even though
Mhm.
they're on different lines.
Yeah,
So it shows they can find success apart, which is a good thing
that's true.
as well. But we do also have to talk about the D-pairing changes because we talked
Mhm.
very extensively
We
about
did.
that last week and, how to mix things up, and specifically about Nick Seeler and, either reducing his ice time or benching him for a game just to give him some rest here. And sure enough, he was on the third pairing in
Yeah.
this game with Zamula, getting him back in the lineup for the first time in a while. And then we have this new second pairing with Emil Andre and Jamie Drysdale, which is not something we would have suggested, but in a weird way, it kind of worked.
No, it did work. I mean, it's kind of weird now that people are talking about Drysdale as a defensive defenseman. It's like, okay, I mean, he's doing fine in that. I don't know. Is that really what he's going to turn into? I don't know. But for the moment, it's fine and it's working. What it did do was really give Yegor Zamula a chance to like show his game because he's probably been itching to get back in, right? I mean, he's been
Yep.
sitting out there. And the locker room was interesting because, he certainly knows all these players, but he said it takes a little while to get used to a D partner, and he's playing on the right side, which he hasn't done in a while.
Right.
So that is something where, they were taking a chance on that and it worked. And
It
so
really
now,
did on both fronts.
yeah. So now the big question is Rick Tocchet going to be able to keep Noah Juleson out? Is he just going to be able to look him and just say, sorry, but Zamula's younger. This is more of what we're doing. And now you're kind of going to get in when you get in. I think that would be fairer to do because the Flyers are a team that needs to figure out this young talent. And it's better if a guy like Juleson plays occasionally than a guy like Zamula.
Yeah, and I think, that's something we've been asking
Yeah.
for quite some time in terms of sitting Juleson and seeing what it could look like in a different configuration, and
Yeah.
it was much, much better. Now,
It
I
was.
will say, obviously the Flyers, we've been talking about the slow starts, that improved in this game, even though the Devils did
Not
score first.
entirely.
Yeah,
Not
but
entirely.
I think the kind of reaction to the slow start was much, much faster than it
Yes.
has been in terms of that recovery. And I think, the Devils had a lot to do with the collapse side of it
Oh,
versus
yeah.
the Flyers scoring, but still excellent shots, by Tyson Foerster, of course. But
Yeah,
I
I think one of them, Jake Allen, would definitely want back. I would look at it this way.
think it was both teams like contributing to how the Flyers were able to recover.
Yeah, no, it was. I when I was talking to somebody walking in and realizing that Jake Allen's playing all these games, I didn't really give it a thought as to, can Jake Allen play all these games? And I think we got the answer. He probably can't. But the interesting thing is because of this Olympic schedule and the way things are, Sheldon Keefe didn't take him out when he clearly should have taken him out like
Yep.
after the fourth goal, but he didn't do it. And we're finding now around the league that coaches aren't doing that. So then it got my brain working even more. And I looked, how many games is Dan Vladar projected to play? 53. He's on pace for 53. And right now, it doesn't look like Rick Tocchet has a real plan for, hey, we're going to, make sure we don't play Vladar too much, because he's only played 30 games maximum in his whole career. Now, you might say, hey, he's a 28-year-old, whatever. But when you're playing games like this and you haven't played a lot of games, even that game, when the Flyers had it mostly in hand, he was moving around a lot. Like especially like at points in the second and at points in the third, he had to make some high leverage saves. Good on him for making them. But these things do add up as the season goes on. And so you do kind of wonder, what is that plan? Right now, Vladar looks great, but they have to manage that.
Yeah, they absolutely do. But I think just in terms of the overall team play and recovering from the slow start that we were talking about, I think they did a much better job in this game than they have in previous games on that front. And one of the other things Rick Tocchet talked about post-game was the balanced offense in terms of the ice time for the different lines. In terms of managing the ice time on the forward side, they actually did a much better job this time around.
They did.
And the fourth line got about 12 minutes on average.
It might have been 4 minutes too much, but at least it balanced it as far as not burning out the others. But we're all looking at that fourth line as a suspect line now, unfortunately. And it's not because of Rodrigo Abels. It's because of the other two guys. Nick Deslauriers and Garden Hathaway don't look good out there.
Right, but I still think the upside of it in terms of the balanced offense was a good aspect of the game management by Rick Tocchet.
For this one, it was because they had a lead. If they were behind
but
in the
that's
game,
how you manage a lead.
Well, okay, sure. But I'm saying if they were behind in this game, it wouldn't have worked out that way.
No, but they were ahead. That's the whole point.
That's fine. Well, if they
he did it right, he managed it correctly, and it led to the win.
Correctly. But I don't think they can look at this as a formula. That's what I'm saying.
Well, if they're ahead, they can.
Oh, sure. Okay.
That's the point, is when they can do it, they are. And I think that's the right thing to do. I think also the power play unit changes were interesting to see, with like the two defensemen second unit out there. But we get Emil Andre out there, and that's the win for me.
Yeah, I've forgotten that when I was doing the other show. I'd forgotten that I did see him out there. But I really do think Cam York needs to be off the power play. He has one power play goal. He's a good passer. He doesn't hit the net. He really doesn't. And you want to keep Jamie out there, fine. But the two defensemen, is that really going to last? I don't know. I mean, it's better when you have one guy that can run it defensively. It just is. But, the power play had its own unique struggles in this one.
Yeah, I mean, and there was a lot of guys with varying ice time on the power play because of the way the shifts happened to fall. And so you can't really look at it exactly. But I think that, when you look at, Bobby Brink getting significant power play time out there, Emil Andre being out there, I do think there's something to be said for that. But seeing Travis Sanheim back out on the power play was kind of a trip.
It was desperation, because the power play was not doing well in that game. So I think they were trying a little bit of everything, honestly.
Yep. But good to see Emil Andre out there. Yes. In the meantime, we have a little bit more to talk about with this game, as well as preview tonight's matchup on the road against the Tampa Bay Lightning. We are going to do that coming up next. Hockey season is well underway, and nothing beats being in the arena for these games. But let's be real, getting tickets can sometimes be a headache between waiting in online queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on the Flyers, and that is where Gametime comes in. It's the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. One of my favorite features is you can see exactly what your seat view is going to look like before buying your tickets with their in-app seat view feature. Their zone deals are a game changer as well. You pick the section, Gametime picks your seats, and you can save big. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. And I recently used Gametime to grab seats for a concert. it could not have been simpler. I had great seats in minutes. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen of the day, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. On tomorrow's show, we are going to recap the Flyers versus Bolts game that we're going to preview shortly. Plus, it's a Phantoms Tuesday. Phantoms had a pretty solid weekend, all things considered, and continuing to see Alex Bump and Denver Barkey perform well. So we're going to talk about all of that on tomorrow's show. Plus, on the Wednesday show, we will have our mailbag segment as we usually do. So make sure to get those questions in. You can email us at lockdownflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on any of our socials, or comment on our YouTube channel. Russ, just to kind of put a bow on that game against the Devils, given the sort of Devils injury situation versus kind of where they are in the standings and the way they've been able to overcome some of that, like how do you gauge that game as a benchmark for the Flyers versus the top teams in the division?
I mean, I gauge it that, like, because I was in the Devils room and they're like a little bit of a mess as far as trying to find consistency. Since Jack Hughes has left the lineup, they haven't done well. Now, that still doesn't mean they don't have talented players, and you saw at times they could load up shots on the offense, but they had trouble putting things together, putting plays together. So, it's a good win. Is it the same as beating the Devils, like when they're rolling? No, it's not exactly like that, but a win's a win. So, as far as being, a top team, they're not there yet, the Flyers, but I think, they're right now, they're in the conversation simply because you could go from the bottom, and Sean Couturier talked about this, from the bottom to the playoff spot, and it's a few points. So they're keeping up with everybody else, and that's what you need to do.
Yeah, it was interesting because Rick Tocchet was asked post game about how he feels about the team overall 25% into the season. And, he got a little bit into the weeds more than I thought he would, answering the question in terms of, got to work on the board battles and get less vulnerable when pressured defensively, right? And they did a better job in this game particular in terms of standing up the Devils at the blue line as opposed to backing into the defensive zone and trying to recover from there, which has been a problem for them until, this particular game. And, I think it might have behooved Tocchet to talk more generally in that circumstance. But I think that he's, trying to give credit where credit's due when he can, but also be realistic and set those kind of expectations.
Well, I think the GM is probably talking to him like, hey, right now we're on a pretty good roll here, but don't start talking about playoffs. And I think that's probably why that occurred.
Yeah. The Tampa Bay Lightning are doing pretty well, I gotta say. They're currently second in the Atlantic, but they were tied for first with the Senators for points percentage at the moment, which that's a whole thing. But they're 7-3-0 in their last 10 games on a 3-game win streak. They've now escalated their beef with the Florida Panthers in a fun way, and that's kind of fueled their season, I think, to some degree. The Atlantic is a little weaker than expected, and you can tell that by the fact that I believe Tampa has the highest goal differential in the division, and it's only a +6. So, there is vulnerability in Tampa and this division overall, but in a fascinating way, their most recent game against the Washington Capitals, they won in a very similar way to the Flyers, where they gave up the first goal pretty quickly, but then scored 4 straight in the first period, which is exactly what happened with the Flyers. So we can see that even when, they get off to a bad start, Tampa just has the ability to come right back.
They do, but they're doing it with depth. Because remember, they're missing their top pairing. Hedman and McDonough are out, and they're out until December. So they're not going to play in this game.
Right.
And Kucherov left that game in the second period and didn't come back. And he's been one of the best players in the league this year. don't know what the status of him is going to be.
Yeah,
But
as of
they are
recording, we
having,
don't know.
yeah, they have other players stepping up though, and Cirelli's always a problem, and Point is always a problem, and so like
Well,
they
Point
have.
left the game as well. That's the
Okay, so
thing.
there you go. I missed that one.
Yeah.
So they're kind of doing it with guts and guile and a really good coach. What's interesting is that their defense is actually kind of holding up. Now, I looked up because I felt like they have a pretty big defense, and their defense averages like 6'2", 212. That's an average. So that's going to be the hard part of the game here. This is a much bigger defense than what they even faced with the Devils. The Devils have guys over 6 foot, but they're not like not all physical kind of guys. There are a lot of puck movers like Luke Hughes, who, as you saw, doesn't go anywhere near a scrum, and Dougie Hamilton, who doesn't go anywhere near a scrum. But these Tampa guys do. And so they have some size. It's going to be a little bit a different setup with that.
Yeah, it is interesting when you talk about that because first off, Tampa is, as always, a little bit dirty.
Oh,
And, they get into the penalty situation a lot, but they have like a decent enough penalty kill because of that blue line and the size to some degree. But they're also relying a lot on block shots. This is why there is some similarities with the Flyers here. And so I think that's something that the Flyers need to hone in on in terms of getting their man out of the way, right? So that Tampa isn't able to rely on just shot blocking and open up lanes for the Flyers offensively.
Yeah, I think the Flyers passing was better in this last game. So if they can continue that helps. Andrei Vasilevsky has had an uptick in the season, though, and he seems to be doing better. If they face him, that's going to even things out. I mean, this is going to be a game where, John Cooper is he's probably going to say, listen, crack down on Zegras, watch that stretch pass for Michkov. He's going to, try and deny that open ice. The Devils did it to some degree at times in that game because like guys were trying a lot of those long passes, stretch passes, in the air passes, and they were knocking a lot of them down, but they couldn't keep it up. But Tampa might be able to. So they may have to formulate things a little differently for this one.
Yeah, Johansson played in net against the Caps, so we're going to see Vasilevsky.
Oh, yeah, it's Vasilevsky.
That's for sure. So, the Flyers have notoriously had a difficult time against Vasilevsky. So that's going to be something. But we haven't had Trevor Zegras, and that's where this dance in terms of what you're talking about, they're going to try and shut him down. And that's where I think they're going to have this more complete offense that we saw in the game against the Devils show up, because we're going to need Tyson Foerster to be active. We're going to need Travis Konechny maybe to get on the board. And maybe Owen Tippett too. But I think those two guys are going to have to utilize their speed to kind of distract the Tampa offense in a way to get the other guys in and get chances. And that's kind of my take on how to win here.
Yeah, I think what the Flyers do have to also watch out for is if they are struggling a little on the power play, giving up shorthanded goals. Like they were getting close with the Devils, giving up some shorthanded attempts, and Cirelli is kind of like a master of that. And so that's something where I would worry about that a little bit. So, maybe we'll see the two defensemen because of that, maybe. And that could be an interesting thing.
Yeah, I think so too. But it should be a really fun matchup.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one.
As part one of this Florida road trip. I'm actually kind of glad they're playing Tampa first and not the Panthers first, because I think I want them fresher for this game over the Panthers game, which is going to be a mess no matter what. I think so. We will talk about this on tomorrow's show, and it is Monday, so we will of course have our nemesis of the week coming up next.
The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game and want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making the late push. Again, I go for Donovan Mitchell. Look at the odds for him to lead the league in scoring. He's scoring over 30 points every game. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Before we get to our nemesis of the week, Russ, since you were in the building, I just want to get your take on all of the Bernie Parent weekend ceremony and what it was like in the building. I got a really great picture from my mom that I posted to Blue Sky since she was there as well, especially highlighting Bernie's mask on the net opening. Like, I can't even imagine being in the building and the emotional aspect of that. But how'd it go?
No, it went great. I mean, there were some chants of Bernie, not as many as you'd like, but I think some of the young fans aren't really in tune with that, but there were some. It was a nice touch to put the mask on the back of the net. I enjoyed seeing that because those masks make me, think about my youth when I was playing like street hockey, and those were the only masks that existed that looked like that. So that was fun. The videos were great. I think they timed it exactly right because instead of like holding things up before they do the anthem and everything else, they kind of like did the anthem and then they kind of like worked that into like a quick little pregame. And I don't think it kept either team waiting too long, but gave the right amount of, push. And, it was nice. They put a light on, his Flyers Hall of Fame banner. And so, yeah, it was very well done.
Yeah, and I watched the live stream of the celebration of life on Friday, and it was just so lovely. And everybody who spoke, obviously was just, sharing some of their incredible memories of Bernie and what he meant to the team and the city. And I just appreciated that they went the extra mile and did this extra event to not have it like bogged down the game, to your point, but also give it its due.
Tough balance.
Right?
Like, this is a hard thing to pull off, and they pulled it off.
Yeah, no, I just think they did a great job. And I love that they started this goalie development program with Snyder Hockey in his honor. I think that's just perfect. And
I think that's the biggest thing is like, for me, somebody out of state, and really, I don't feel like Snyder Hockey got its due until maybe like 10, 15 years ago. It really started to get more of a push, I feel like, out in the media. But he was there from the beginning. And, that's something I probably would have recognized. And so it was really good how they kind of showed that off. That was impressive.
Yeah, I think so. But just a really wonderful job by the Flyers, and kudos to everything. Yeah. And I'm glad they took the time to, create this weekend as opposed to just trying to rush something right when he passed.
No, and that was the thing.
The right move.
You knew they were going to do things, but it's hard to react. Like something happens and then you have to start planning.
Yeah. Yeah. So just thinking good things about Bernie Parent, of course. Heading into our nemesis of the week. Last week, I talked about the weird schedule of, a lot of time in between games and then everything crammed together. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the schedule in this week's nemesis. You talked about streaming services raising prices and the algorithm feeding you old stuff. The schedule necessitates that my nemesis of the week is Florida. It has always been my nemesis, to be honest. I do not enjoy the state of Florida, period. I'll say it. I don't go there unless there's something NASA related, like a launch. Right. I will go to Kennedy Space Center to see that sort of things, but I will not go to the state of Florida for any other reasons. And I hate it when the Flyers are there too. I'm sure they like the warm weather, but don't like those teams, don't like that state. So Florida is my nemesis of the week.
Okay. I mean, I get that. My nemesis of the week is again, because I was shown this on Twitter and I can't remember the user's name. He talked about how streaming now is kind of killing Thanksgiving football. I know, but this is the thing. And I didn't really take that fully into consideration. But I think he said there was only one free game on Thanksgiving, where people used to be able to plan their whole day around that. There used to be like 3 games. And I used to be able to be like, all right.
Well, it was 2, but okay.
2. Well, no, at night. No, a Sunday night one too. There'd be the 1 o'clock, a 4 o'clock, and a Sunday night one.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Thanksgiving Day.
No. The whole Thanksgiving football thing. And so, like, I would always tell my mother, yeah, do it during the first game because it's the Lions and not that good. And that's how we used to do it. Now, the Lions are pretty good now, but that held up for like a good 25 years with the Lions being bad. But now, like, there's only one free game. And that's kind of sad. You would think that networks could have stepped up and kept those games, but they didn't.
Yeah, I just look at Thanksgiving Day games and Sundays. It doesn't matter that it's Thanksgiving weekend. That's just a regular Sunday to me.
Okay.
It's just the Thursday games that made it special. Now the thing that upsets me about it is that there's games almost every day of the week now in the NFL, so it doesn't make the Thanksgiving Day game special anymore because there's already games on Thursdays now. So that's my issue with all of this. It has nothing to do with streaming services.
Okay.
On
that's
that.
fair.
But yeah, I'm sure we will have some good Nemesis next week after the Thanksgiving holiday. And thanks for listening today. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you get us those mailbag questions, send it to us via email at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. You can message us on any of our socials at lockedonflyers or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out Locked On NHL Game Night. It's every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can get local analysis on a national scale with NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. It's on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.